Caleb Johnson stood at the door of his new apartment in the south side of Chicago. A tall, lean African-American man with a short beard and tired, watchful eyes. He held a small ring of keys in his hand. At 33, Caleb had just been released after serving 5 years in prison for a crime he didn't commit. The neighbors eyed him with suspicion. An old woman across the street peeked from behind her curtain, then vanished. A white woman in her 50s, with ashen blonde hair and a cold stare, watched him until he disappeared behind the door. The apartment smelled like mildew. The walls were dull gray, the linoleum cracked, but it was a roof over his head. In one corner lay his only bag, some clothes, a few books, and a letter he'd guarded through every year behind bars. A letter from Maria. Maria Rodriguez was the only one who never turned her back on him. A Latina attorney, 29 years old, with copper-toned skin, dark brown eyes, and thick, wavy hair. She had defended Caleb in court and continued fighting for his freedom after the conviction. He unfolded the letter with care. "You're innocent, and I will prove it. I believe in you." His hands trembled. No tears, no smile, just the heavy silence of survival. He knew the road ahead would be brutal. The record would follow him everywhere. Employers would hesitate. Cops would target. The next morning, Caleb buttoned up a clean shirt and headed to apply for a job at a hardware store. The manager, Jack Harper, a stout, smiling white man, greeted him warmly at first. But the moment he read felony conviction on the application, his tone changed. "Sorry, Mr. Johnson, we don't have any openings right now." Caleb stepped back into the street. Once again, he was judged not by who he was, but by a past forced upon him. Caleb spent the next few days walking the city streets. Every office he entered was another silent rejection. Sometimes they didn't even pretend to consider him. A black man with a felony record, there was little patience for nuance. At a small diner on 63rd Street, he met James Whitaker, a tall, broad-shouldered white man in his 40s with short sandy hair and thick glasses. James ran a small non-profit that helped reintegrate former inmates. He wore second-hand suits and spoke with quiet conviction. "You've been through hell, Caleb," James said over a paper cup of coffee. "But I've seen good men start over. Takes grit. Takes allies." Caleb looked up, the words hitting something raw inside. James offered him a stipend internship. Minimal pay, clerical work, but a start. Caleb took it without hesitation. It was more than a job. It was someone saying, "I see you." But on the second week, Caleb saw the cracks. A local councilman had pulled funding for the nonprofit, citing community complaints. In truth, it was pressure from developers wanting to buy up the block. Gentrification masked as public good. That night, Caleb sat alone on a bench outside the center. A young black woman approached, tall, with locks pulled back, wearing a school security uniform. Her name was Dana Brooks. She was 27, born and raised in the South Side. Her eyes carried fire. "You work with James?" she asked. "I do." "Then you're one of the good ones," she said. "But this city don't like us rising." Caleb nodded. He knew it too well. Over the next month, Caleb found a rhythm. The work at the nonprofit was simple. Data entry, making copies, greeting clients. But it gave him purpose. He felt grounded, even if the pay barely covered his groceries. Every morning, he saw the same faces. James, always buried in paperwork. Dana, dropping by on her lunch breaks with sharp words and warm eyes. And the people like him, those trying to rebuild what had been broken. But not everyone appreciated the effort. One day, Caleb stepped out for lunch and returned to find the nonprofit's front window shattered. Glass glittered on the sidewalk like fallen stars. Spray painted across the wall in red. "Criminals not welcome." Police were called, but the officers barely glanced at the scene. 2 white men in uniform. One of them shrugged. "No witnesses, no footage. Nothing we can do." Caleb looked at James, who just sighed. "It's not the first time," he said. Inside, Dana helped sweep the glass. "You think they'll come back?" Caleb asked her. "They always do," she said. "But so do we." That night, Caleb walked home with his hoodie pulled tight against the wind. A patrol car slowed beside him. 2 officers stared. "Where are you headed?" one asked. "Home," Caleb replied. "You sure it's your home?" He gave his address. They ran a check. Minutes passed in silence before they let him go. This was the part no one warned him about. The invisible leash. The constant suspicion. Being free, but never really. At home, He stared at Maria's letter again. Her voice in his head was a balm. "You're innocent." But the world didn't care. Not yet. Caleb's routine helped steady his mind, but the weight of his past always hovered. On a rainy Tuesday, he received a letter that chilled him to the bone. It was from the Chicago Police Department, a notice of review regarding his case. The signature at the bottom, Detective Ronald Bracey. Bracey was the man who'd led the original investigation against him. A tall, heavy-set white man with a clean shave and a mouth that never smiled. Bracey had built the entire case on a single witness, someone who later recanted. But by then, the damage was done. Caleb remembered his cold eyes in the courtroom. He brought the letter to James. "This isn't good," James said. "If they're reviewing the case, it could mean trouble. Or maybe Maria stirred something up." That night, Caleb called her for the first time since his release. Her voice was steady, even joyful. "I filed for a retrial," she said. "I found something in the original files they never disclosed. It's a long shot, but I had to try." "Thank you," Caleb said softly. "You shouldn't be thanking me. You should be preparing. This could get worse before it gets better." The next morning, he arrived at the nonprofit to find a news crew parked outside. A local reporter was interviewing James, spinning a story about a reformed felon under scrutiny again. They hadn't even spoken to Caleb. Inside, the phone rang nonstop. Threats, slurs, people calling to pull donations. By afternoon, James looked drained. "We might have to shut down. Temporarily." Dana arrived with 2 coffees and a worried look. "This isn't about you alone," she said. "It's all of us. They just use you to scare others." Caleb felt the walls closing again. But something in Dana's eyes said, "Don't run. Not this time." Days passed with mounting pressure. Caleb, though nervous, refused to hide. He kept working at the center, even when volunteers quit and donations dried up. He had nothing left to lose, except the tiny piece of dignity he was starting to rebuild. One afternoon, Maria called again. "They're pushing back hard," she said. "The department filed an objection to the retrial motion. Bracey's name is all over it." Caleb clenched the phone. Why does he care? Because if you're proven innocent, someone has to be guilty of putting you away. That night, Caleb couldn't sleep. He walked the neighborhood. It was after midnight, quiet but uneasy. As he passed a gas station, he heard shouts, then saw a young black man, maybe 21, being pinned by 2 white cops. "Get your hands off me!" the boy screamed. Caleb stepped closer, cautious. One officer turned to him. "Keep walking or you'll join him." Caleb hesitated. Every part of him screamed not again, but he couldn't walk away. "I'm recording this," he said, lifting his phone. The cops froze. "What's your name?" one barked. "Caleb Johnson." That name still carried weight. One officer narrowed his eyes. "Figures." They let the boy up. "Next time, don't mouth off," one said before getting back in the cruiser. The boy looked at Caleb, stunned. "You just saved me, man." "No," Caleb said, lowering his phone. "We saved each other." The next morning, Dana met him with wide eyes. "I saw the video," she said. "It's already online." Caleb felt fear and pride mix in his chest. He hadn't meant to go viral. But now people were watching. And that changed everything. The video spread faster than Caleb could have imagined. By morning, it was on local news. By evening, national outlets picked it up. "Exonerated man steps in to stop police abuse." Opinions were split. Praise flooded in. So did hate. Caleb received emails, messages, even handwritten letters. Some were from people like him, survivors of a broken system. Others accused him of fanning the flames, calling him a thug pretending to be a hero. The nonprofit's phone rang non-stop. James handled the media. Dana handled the trolls. Caleb just kept showing up. Then one day, he found a letter taped to the center's front door. "You'll never be more than what you are. Go back to prison." Caleb stood silently for a long time before tearing it down. Dana appeared behind him. "You okay?" He nodded, though he wasn't. That night, he walked Maria through everything over the phone. Her voice was firm. "They're scared, because you're showing the truth. Don't stop now." But the pressure grew. The police union released a statement condemning Caleb's reckless actions. Protesters gathered both for and against him. Bracey himself was spotted giving interviews. He's not a symbol of justice, Bracy told a local reporter. He's just lucky and dangerous. James looked pale when he read that quote aloud. They're building a case in the court of public opinion, he said. Caleb leaned against the wall, jaw tight. Then let's give them something real. Like what? Dana asked. Truth. We find the kid they used to convict me. We get him to talk. Again. James hesitated. That's risky. So was walking into a courtroom 5 years ago. Finding Darnell was harder than they expected. He had disappeared after the trial. His testimony used to seal Caleb's fate. But James had contacts, and Maria pulled favors. After a week, they found him working nights at a factory in Gary, Indiana. Darnell was 27 now. Tall, thin, black, with tired eyes and a neck tattoo partly faded under his collar. When he saw Caleb, he froze. I don't want trouble, man, he said, stepping back. I'm not here for revenge, Caleb said calmly. I just want you to tell the truth. On record. Darnell looked at Maria, who stood beside Caleb like steel wrapped in grace. I didn't know what they'd do to me, he muttered. They said if I didn't testify, they'd charge me too. They had me cornered. Caleb swallowed. He'd imagined this moment, but hearing it hurt deeper than he expected. We can fix it, Maria said gently. But we need your statement, the real one. It took hours. Coffee, silence, tears. In the end, Darnell agreed. The affidavit was filed the next day. Social media exploded. Some saw it as justice in motion. Others screamed conspiracy. Then the threats escalated. Dana's tires were slashed. James received anonymous death threats. Caleb's mailbox was smashed open. Police promised to investigate, but did nothing. Still, they pushed forward. Maria prepared for the retrial. You know Bracy will fight this, she said to Caleb. He already lost once, Caleb replied. He just doesn't know it yet. That night, Dana stayed late with him at the center. They sat side by side in silence, the weight between them heavy but shared. I don't know how you do it, she said. I stopped waiting for someone to save me, he said. I became the one. The courtroom was packed. It had been months since Caleb's release. Now, thanks to Maria's tireless work and Darnell's recantation, a retrial was granted. Journalists filled the benches. Community members stood shoulder to shoulder. On one side, those who still doubted him. On the other, those who'd finally begun to believe. Caleb sat beside Maria, dressed in a dark blazer and tie. Dana was behind him, hands clasped. James, pale but proud, nodded from the back row. Across the aisle sat Bracy. The detective was stone-faced, but his jaw clenched every time Darnell spoke. When Darnell described how he'd been coerced, how he'd lied to avoid prison himself, the courtroom went still. Maria stood, voice clear and sharp. This man lost 5 years of his life. Let's not pretend it was justice. The judge, an older white woman with silver hair and wise eyes, called for silence. Then she spoke. This court finds the original conviction to have been made in error. Caleb Johnson is hereby fully exonerated. The room erupted. Some clapped, some cried. Caleb sat still for a moment, letting the words settle into his bones. Free. After the ruling, Caleb stepped outside. Cameras flashed. A reporter asked, "What now, Mr. Johnson?" He looked at Dana, at Maria, then back at the crowd. I'm going to keep fighting, not just for me, for anyone who's been told their life doesn't matter. That night, they gathered at the nonprofit. No suits, no speeches, just food, laughter, and quiet joy. Later, Dana pulled Caleb aside. You did it, she said. We did, he corrected her. And we're just getting started.